Hello, this is Jer. I'm playing Oxygen Not Included, and in this episode, we're going to talk about the diet of hatchlings, as well as hatches themselves. Because as was pointed out in the last video by Spoonwood, they gave me a warning that these hatches and hatchlings consume meat, which is a problem because in this little hatching room and in this stable, I'm having hatches essentially be turned into meat, and I want my dupes to be able to eat it, not these guys. Ultimately working on, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to have the automatic conveyor loader load meat. So that's going to take it out of these two rooms and dump it next to the incubator. So that is going to prevent the hatchlings from eating the meat and allow my dupes to do it instead. So whenever I attack anything other than those creatures inside that room, they will turn to meat. The conveyor loader will pick it up and drop it next to the incubator. Now there is a chance that that incubator, just giving I do some other tasks while I do some hugging, there is a chance that I can get some hatchlings hatch in the incubator room, because while the egg is waiting to have the lullaby effect, it could hatch. But I'm going to just keep an eye on that and prefer to attack hatchlings that are in the incubator room for that reason going forward. So just getting some water or salt water dropped out of this area, because I want to have access to that perhaps later on in another cycle or perhaps another episode. But I thought this episode was all going to be about masks. So it's going to be another. This game has so many subtle things to it. And this one, as I mentioned, the diet actually. So I've got a stone hatch egg, so I'm processing that for the very first time. That's really good news. That is going to help with the down the hatch achievement, and we'll talk about the diet of those guys later on, because I'm probably going to make a completely different stable for them. But anyway, that'll be a future episode. This one, I'm just getting my dupes to clean up this area over here, where perhaps in the next episode I will build some masks. But I don't think we're done with that one. So just drilling out a spot here to take in some oxygen later on. But so every single cycle. In fact, I've started doing this multiple times in a cycle, because it's a little bit annoying how the lullaby effect works. It's exactly the next cycle that it can be reapplied or wears out. And what that means is, I can't apply the lullaby effect on all the eggs at exactly a particular time. That means, like, say, if I apply that effect on 10 eggs, the first egg will run out, let's say, in the middle of the day, and the 10th egg that I process might be run out at the end of the day. That just means that I'm going to have to check that quite often. All right, so while my hugger is processing eggs to make sure that that turns into meat, I'm just upgrading some of my electrical circuits. Okay, so in order to upgrade my electrical circuits, I'm going to need more aluminum ore. So I'm making the focus, and even though I'm doing this project, the focus is always going to be on Hugger. If Hugger has the opportunity to apply the lullaby effect on some eggs, I'm always doing that. Checking this list of eggs that I have multiple times a day to see if there's a set that can be processed, and if so, they'll do that. And I'll just keep my other dupes busy doing other things. So I need more aluminum ore, and it is best to do this now, because if I don't upgrade my electrical circuits and I turn more things on, I'm going to need at least a pump and a filter for my masks if I build those. And if I don't do that, they're going to start to take damage by circuitry overloading. So notice here, whenever I'm digging out spots for inside the pip stables, I'm doing that at high priority, because I don't want my pips to be able to escape or go in between the different stables and become crowded in one area. Again, just checking the eggs multiple times a cycle to see if any need to be applied. All right, so this is going to give me the ability to run more than just 1,000 watts of things within this electrical circuit. I'm going to have to be a little bit careful about how I go into that pip room. And once I get to that point, perhaps in the next cycle, I'll have to have a little bit of a technique to do, or just make sure my dupes aren't too busy. So by the point that I start this project that they destroy one of those doors and replace it with a heavy watt plate, they'll be able to have the time available to replace it. And hopefully I won't have too many pips escape. The other thing is, I'm not going to destroy all the doors. I'm only going to destroy the doors on the left. I learned my lesson in the last playthrough, where I just destroyed all the doors in the stables and tried what I thought would be quickly to replace them with heavy watt wires, and the pips just went everywhere in the base. So anyways, I'm just buying my time before I do the electrical upgrade of those pip rooms and just doing everywhere else. And astronaut, oh, you don't have a bed. Furthermore, the beds don't have enough oxygen in that area, so I'm going to dig out this spot for this, hopefully for this hydrogen to get out, and I'm going to build a bed for astronaut and an XS one, so that if I get another dupe, they'll have one. Whoops. All right, all those. I think part of the reason is I'm just focusing so much on food because of the carnivore achievement. But let's make sure people have beds. Okay, so starting cycle 52. And this should be no surprise, processing the different types of eggs. I've got several stone hatch eggs, so excited about that in an episode coming up. So I'm going to actually build another spot for them. So I'm noticing that this conveyor loader is not taking that meat. I expected that to drop it. And the reason for it is I forgot that conveyor loader has a special setting on it to only take items that are swept, because I want to specifically select the eggs that don't have the lullaby, the eggs that don't have the lullaby effect, and have those ones brought down. So I can't just add meat to that one. I'm going to build a second one right next to it. I'm going to tell this one, pick up any meat. So if any meat is dropped here by a critter being attacked, instead of potentially being at a risk of one of those little hatchlings potentially eating the meat, it'll drop it down in the room below. And the only disadvantage with that is there's only one dupe that can go in that room. So what I might do, I might move that door a little bit closer. Oh, score 12,000 calories of barbecue meat. That's nice. That's going to, okay, that's something to celebrate. Obviously, not going to matter for a long-term effect, but that may just really help with allowing me to get those last few pips and hatches eggs out of that system. Anyway, that's pretty cool, because I don't actually have many critters within there right now, but I think I'm pretty close to be able to generate 400,000 calories of meat before the end of cycle 100. 50 more to go. Well, actually, 48 more to go. So now I'm inside the incubator room and the hatching room, upgrading the electrical circuits there. This one's not going to be the difficult part, but here comes the difficult part. I'm going to upgrade the electrical wires inside the stables. And because those darn pips have the ability to climb walls, including doors, they can potentially escape. So I'm pausing at various points, just removing the wires. As soon as that door is removed, I'm going to add a high priority, try to get one of the dupes to build that plane. I'm going to do the same thing on all the other doors. So the first one was successful. No pip escaped. Hopefully I don't bury them inside a tile, but I'll check for that at the end. And at the same time doing this, even though this is a high priority task, the hugging process takes the highest priority of anything else. So always pausing, checking to see if there's any eggs that need to be processed. All right, let's try to do 3 at once. Okay, 1 pip escaped. Dang, that's always possible. 2 are now out. All right, it's just going to be the way it is. Hopefully, I just will need to wrangle 2 or 3 pips by the end of this process and get those electrical wires upgraded. But I'm going to put in those 3 different heavy watt wires or plates, and then once those are in, that will reform the pip stables, and any stable or any pips rather that have escaped, I will wrangle them, bring them back into those rooms so that they can have the effect of laying eggs, which is what is driving the meat creation of this whole system that I've got set up. So that's going to be really important. So there we are. I've got all my stables on the right side with this electrical wire. So now I can upgrade the wiring inside that one, and I can do the same thing with the doors in the next set of stables on the left. This one is not going to be too bad because if one of the pips escapes this the stable on the left, they're just going to go into the other one. And what that's going to do is that a drop-off point is going to be set up to wrangle any excess pips more than the limit of 3, and they'll just put it in the other room when this is all done. So it was very important that I upgrade the electrical wiring on the doors on the right first before I do this, rather than trying to do it all at once, which is what I did in the last playthrough, and pips just went all throughout my base. Not the biggest concern, I can just re-wrangle them. It's just a waste of effort to have my critter wranglers or ranchers go around and wrangle. Again, making sure the lullaby effect is applied to all the eggs as I'm doing this high priority task. So once I upgrade the wires in the stables and the rest of the base, I'll be able to take on 20 times the amount of electrical current through that circuit. So standard wire gives you 1,000 watts, the heavy watt wire gives you 20,000. So that's going to allow me to do a lot more things. And it doesn't take long to overload a 1,000 watt wire. In fact, it's just a matter of 4 pumps being on. That's almost enough to get to the point where you're being overloaded. So once I do that, I won't pretty much have to worry about electric wires, because 20,000 watts of power, there's just not a lot of things that I need to do to get to the point where I'm going to overload that. Whereas 1,000, it wouldn't take long. And if my dupes do overload it and they start replacing that with aluminum ore, I might not have enough aluminum ore left because they're burning through fixing the regular wire to upgrade the heavy watt wire. So if you don't do this soon, you can get into problems. All right, so with that out of the way, let's just add in the last little seeing a pip go into the cage or the stables with the hatches. I'll deal with that later. Technically not the biggest concern, but I prefer to have them separated. So I am now creating some meat, and I'm going to have that be dumped down. Now, I'm realizing a problem. So that meat is triggering that plate, meaning that door is still locked. That's affecting this whole automated exit door. So what I'm going to do 2 things. First of all, I'm going to build the door closer so that my regular dupes or the non-hugger dupes can have access to that meat and carry it down to the electric grill. That'll be one thing. It's just going to finish the additional electrical wires. As I mentioned, if I forget any, these ones here aren't connected, but I might as well destroy them. But if I forget these wires, for instance, that'll be a drain on my aluminum ore as my circuit goes over 1,000 watts. So I'm having this door built closer to that plate, so that if meat is dropped there, my dupes will be able to pick it up, and the hugger that's in there isn't going to be trapped in there because they can't process meat. You can't hug meat. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to continue to try to operate this room, but I'm also going to have a second chute dropping meat next to the electrical grill. And I'm going to take the meat, I'm going to have 2 separate lines. I'm going to even have a auto sweeper there. So once meat is dropped next to the electrical grill, that auto sweeper will put it inside the electrical grill for chef to be able to turn that into barbecue meat. And I'll create a second line conveyor rail that goes up to this machine, disconnect it from the other line, and that way meat will be dropped in from there. There's still going to be a little bit of meat that comes from the stable on the left over there. And I'm just going to let my dupes manually scoop out the meat when that happens. But when I choose to create some meat, at least that meat will be taken to the electrical grill and not on that plate affecting the exit door. All right, we'll see how that runs. It is coming up on cycle 55, and let's test out this system. So having one of the hatchlings be attacked, that's going to be converted to meat. Auto sweepers picked it up, they put it in the second conveyor loader, and it's dropped it next to electrical grill. That's exactly what I want to happen. I even have an auto sweeper next to electrical grill to put it inside the grill so that chef doesn't have to do that, or any of the other dupes don't have to do that. And I also see I've got a number of pipsqueaks up in the incubator. That is awesome because that's future meat for my dupes to be able to consume, as well as working towards getting the carnivore achievements in Oxygen Not Included. So it's really going to be largely about, as I do some of the other upgrades in my base, having Hugger in this room all the time, several times a cycle to process all the eggs that don't have the lullaby effect. So now just adding a little bit of tiling on in some of the stables. I'm going to do that high priority so that there's a reduced chance of the pips going in between the different stables as that happens. All right, so here's one thing to look out for. I've got Hugger in this room, and they're processing the last egg. And then now I'm just checking to see if there's any eggs that need to be processed. But because that plate is now empty, that door is open, meaning that even if these eggs, I've got to pause at the moment, but even if these eggs drop down, Hugger gets to escape, do some other, what I consider lower priority things while they're cooking right now. And I have to wait for them to come back. So as I watch Hugger use the electrical grill, I notice they're a little bit slow. So I'm going to give them and Chef the Grilling 2 skills. And I noticed that I've got a lot of other skills that I haven't given out. These are potential bonuses to various different things. My favorite and my go-to is the improved carrying, giving them more ability to carry things around. But as I mentioned, Hugger is going to have Grilling 2. So I've got 2 dupes that can do cooking. For the rest of them, depending on their skills, I'm going to give Scientist the Data Analysis Researcher. That's going to be useful later on. And I'm just going to make sure every dupe that has the morale benefit or morale capability gets additional skills, and that doesn't go to waste. So as I mentioned, my default is the carrying capacity if I don't have any particular purpose for anything else for that dupe. But anyway, just curious, and if you want to leave a note in the comments, what's your favorite skill to give out if everything else is equal? Oh, Bristleberry. If this was earlier in the game, I would love to take this. But I don't want my dupes to eat it. This hurts. And I don't want any additional dupes at the moment, so I think I'm going to reject this. I don't reject gifts very often, but anyway, there it is. With the rest of the time of this cycle, I'm going to do research on a metal refinery and build a second stable for hatches. This is going to be for the stone hatches and ultimately smooth hatches. I think that will be the focus of the next episode. First of all, thanks for Spoonwood for making me aware of the fact that those hatches are eating meat in the stables. So anytime those hatches either expire or I attack them because I want to get meat, and that includes the hatchlings as well as hatches, they consume meat, even if it was one of their previous friends. So the solution is just to be able to use the auto sweepers to get meat out of that room to avoid that situation. That makes me favor these little pips over the hatches, though the hatches do produce twice the amount of meat. I also need them for Down the Hatch achievement, which will be later on in this series. The other thing is I upgraded the electrical circuits that are inside the stables with the pips as well as the hatches. And that puts me in the situation to be able to turn more things on without having wires need to be repaired. So that's it for this episode. I hope you'll join me in another episode. If you want to see more, like, subscribe, and see you then.